In this video, I will be summarizing the horror thriller film Freaky from 2020. The movie begins with a group of friends, Ginny, Evan, Isaac, and Sandra, gathered around a bonfire at Ginny's house. They are discussing the town's infamous serial killer, known as the Blissfield Butcher, who has been targeting teenagers on homecoming night since 1977. However, they believe they are safe since the Butcher hasn't killed anyone since the 90s. Later, Isaac and Sandra go inside Ginny's house to search for alcohol. They discover Ginny's parents' collection of ancient artifacts, including a dagger in a glass case that catches Isaac's attention. While Isaac goes to the basement to find wine, he hears a strange noise and becomes startled, accidentally breaking the bottle he is holding. Suddenly, a large man appears and brutally kills Isaac by forcing the broken bottle down his throat. Meanwhile, Sandra is in the bathroom when someone violently pounds on the door. The killer kicks the door open and smashes Sandra's head against the toilet seat, causing her death. Outside the house, Ginny and Evan are having an argument when the Butcher suddenly appears and kills Evan by impaling his head with a broken tennis racket. Ginny, filled with horror, quickly rushes into the house and hides in the wardrobe while the Butcher searches for her. Eventually, the serial killer opens the wardrobe, but luckily, he doesn't find her and walks away. To her surprise, Ginny discovers a secret door inside the wardrobe and sneaks out after some time. She hears her parents arriving in the driveway, so she makes a dash for it. However, the Butcher ambushes her and throws her against the wall, impaling her on a hanging artifact. At this moment, he starts hearing whispers coming from a dagger inside a glass case. Taking the dagger with him, he escapes, leaving Ginny's parents screaming in horror at the sight of their daughter's lifeless body. The next morning, we wake up with Millie, a teenager living in the town of Blissfield. She resides with her alcoholic single mom and her older sister, Char, who is a cop. The homecoming dance is approaching, but Millie has decided not to attend and instead accompany her mom to watch a play. At school, her friends Joshua and Nyla express their disappointment that she won't be at homecoming. Despite struggling with self-esteem, Millie's friends reassure her that she is attractive. Nyla takes her aside and advises her not to let her father's death prevent her from living her life, especially since he passed away a year ago. We then learn from Ryler and her friend group that Millie faces daily passive-aggressive bullying from her classmates. Later in class, her woodshop teacher, Mr. Bernardi, unexpectedly asks her to present a project earlier than she was informed, catching her off guard and unprepared. As a result, Bernardi humiliates her in front of the class and her crush, Booker. Suddenly, Millie and every other student in town receive an emergency alert stating that 4 of their classmates were murdered the previous night, and an investigation is underway. However, despite these events, the school has decided not to cancel the homecoming event. During the game, Millie disguises herself as the school mascot and becomes the target of bullying by a few football players. Booker, whom Millie has a crush on, witnesses the bullying but does not intervene. After the game, Millie realizes that her mother has not arrived to pick her up. Although her best friends offer to keep her company while she waits, she declines their offer and decides to wait alone. Before parting ways, Millie and her friends perform their special friendship handshake. As time passes, Millie finds herself alone at the stadium, unaware that her alcoholic mother is passed out at home from excessive drinking. When Millie's sister Char returns from work and realizes that Millie is not home, she becomes concerned and calls her. Millie answers the call, but her phone dies shortly after. Fear starts to creep in as the stadium lights suddenly go out. To make matters worse, Millie spots a man standing across from her. As he approaches, she recognizes him as the Butcher and quickly hides under the bleachers, trying to remain silent as the Butcher walks above her. She cautiously peeks out to check if the coast is clear. Millie then runs across the field in an attempt to escape the killer, but he catches up to her and pins her down. Upon closer inspection, it becomes apparent that he is holding the ancient dagger seen at the beginning of the movie. The dagger's gem illuminates, and the sky becomes dark and murky. In a brief moment, The two find themselves transported to the top of an Aztec pyramid, where the butcher stabs Millie in the shoulder with the ancient dagger. Strangely, he also begins to bleed from his shoulder, mirroring Millie's injury. Just in time, Char, who is a police officer, arrives at the scene, causing the panicked butcher to drop his dagger and flee. Char checks on her younger sister to ensure she is safe. The police take the dagger as evidence and bring it to the station. Millie, however, is acting strangely and is safely taken home. As she goes to bed, she is haunted by whispers saying the word La Dola. When she wakes up the next day, she feels something is wrong with her body and looks around in confusion, as if everything is new to her. It becomes clear that she is no longer Millie, but the butcher whose soul has been transferred into Millie's body. Meanwhile, the real Millie wakes up in the body of the butcher and panics. Just then, a drug addict approaches her looking to buy drugs. Millie, bewildered, tries to explain that she is a teenage girl trapped in a grown man's body, but the drug addict assumes she is high and asks for drugs. Feeling uncomfortable, Millie runs away. Meanwhile, the butcher leaves Millie's room and eats breakfast like a savage, confusing Millie's mom. He then grabs a kitchen knife and moves to stab Char, but Millie's mom stops him just in time. When Millie's mom suggests that she skip school, the butcher becomes intrigued and decides to go to school that day. At the same time, news about the butcher and a rough sketch of his face is all over the local news, which puts Millie at a disadvantage as she searches for help in town. People give her strange looks and a woman screams, accusing her of being the butcher. With no other choice, Millie runs away from the scene. Later that day, the school announces that homecoming is canceled for the students' safety due to Millie's incident the previous night. Little do they know, the infamous murderer is walking down their very hallway. This prompts the three best friends to flee and escape in Joshua's car. The officers quickly inform the rest of the force to search for Joshua's car. Coincidentally, it passes by a patrolling officer, who pursues it. The teenagers go to a department store to get Millie a disguise. They hide her in the fitting room while they search for clothes. Shortly after, Nyla returns with a Halloween mask, and Millie puts it on, although her visibility is limited. Meanwhile, Joshua checks his friend's Instagram to find out where the butcher is and discovers that he is hanging out with the football players. While playing pool, the football players complain about the cancellation of homecoming and suggest throwing their own homecoming. The butcher takes advantage of this opportunity and proposes holding it at the town's old mill, which the boys agree to. Next, the butcher enters a spooky house, followed by Booker, who has been curious about Millie's strange behavior. As Booker searches for the butcher, the killer stalks him from behind, ready to attack. However, the real Millie appears and knocks him unconscious. She then goes after Booker and also knocks him out to prevent him from going to the police. They bring the butcher and Booker to Joshua's house and tie them to chairs. When they wake up, they are understandably frightened, but Millie recites a poem that she anonymously placed in his locker a few weeks ago. This convinces him of her true identity, and he agrees to help. With Booker on board, the four teenagers devise a plan to retrieve the dagger from the police station. Joshua stands guard while the other three go to the station. Upon arrival, they wait in the car until the other officers leave. Nyla instructs the two to stay in the car and takes charge. Once inside, she encounters Char and immediately pleads for help, claiming that the butcher kidnapped her earlier and she managed to escape, but he followed her to the police station. Hearing this, Char tells her to hide and checks the back lot. Inside the car, Booker finally confesses to Millie that he also has feelings for her. In Joshua's house, his mother unexpectedly arrives early and questions why his best friend is tied to a chair. Joshua quickly comes up with a weak excuse, claiming they are engaged in role-playing. However, his mother remains skeptical and decides to untie his friend with a knife. Joshua pleads with her not to, but the butcher, growing impatient, stomps on her toes, causing her to drop the dagger. Seizing the opportunity, the butcher frees himself and begins pursuing them with the dagger. Fearing for their safety, Joshua and his friend retreat to the bedroom to hide. The butcher pounds menacingly on the door until he devises a new plan and heads to the police station instead. Unfortunately, Nyla is caught attempting to steal the dagger, leading Char to point her gun at Nyla and force her to drop the blade. Shortly after, the butcher arrives at the police station, pretending to be Millie to gain Char's favor. However, the real Millie witnesses the butcher's entrance. Seizing the moment, the butcher takes the dagger and steals a police car, making his way to the old mill where the homecoming party is being held. Inside the station, Char holds Millie at gunpoint and guides her towards a cell. Just then, Booker enters and distracts Char, allowing Millie to throw her sister into the cell. Millie apologizes to Char before the group rushes off to the mill party. The teenagers make their way to the homecoming party on foot, while the butcher lures a football player to a secluded area. With only 13 minutes remaining until the body swap becomes permanent, Booker sets an alarm on Millie's watch before they begin searching for the butcher. Meanwhile, the football player leads the butcher to meet two of his friends, and the boys boast about their intentions to harm Millie. However, the boys quickly realize that the butcher is not someone to be trifled with. When one of the boys hands the butcher a bottle, he uses it to brutally murder two of them. The remaining boy puts up a fight, but the butcher finds a conveniently placed chainsaw and decapitates him. The group separates, with Joshua following a football player who claims to know Millie's whereabouts. However, the football player leads Joshua to a secluded area and begins making unwelcome advances. Just as things escalate, the butcher appears and thrusts a metal hook into the football player's eye. Joshua screams in horror, and Millie arrives to confront the butcher, urging Joshua to flee. Simultaneously, the police arrive on the scene, and a struggle ensues between Millie and the butcher. Millie manages to grab a dagger, but an officer shoots it out of her hand. She swiftly takes down the officer before going after the butcher. With the help of Nyla and Joshua, the group subdues the butcher and prepares to strike him. Unfortunately, the alarm goes off, signaling that time has run out. Millie is momentarily at a loss for words until Joshua reminds her that Booker always sets his alarms 5 minutes early, indicating there is still time. Encouraged, Millie plunges the dagger into the butcher's heart, effectively ending the curse. At the same time, the police arrive and fatally shoot the butcher. In the next scene, the butcher is being transported in an ambulance and pronounced dead, at least for now. Meanwhile, Millie returns home and finds solace in cuddling with her relieved mother. Everything seems to be fine, but when Millie ventures into the hallway, she discovers the front door ajar. Strange noises emanate from another room, and as she investigates, the butcher sneaks up behind her and holds a knife to her throat. Just in the nick of time, Char comes to the rescue, but it is revealed that the bullets in her gun have been removed. Fortunately, Millie's mother intervenes, smashing a bottle over the butcher's head, while Char charges at him and hastily reloads her gun. However, she is not quick enough. The butcher throws Millie's mother and Char to the ground, and then proceeds to taunt Millie about her difficult life, including her deceased father and alcoholic mother. He twists Millie's arm and pins her down. Despite the dire situation, Millie refuses to lose hope and retaliates by delivering a powerful kick to the butcher's groin, allowing the women to overpower him. As a final blow, Millie impales him with a shard from a broken chair. And this is where the movie concludes.